Stop. Your soulmate made a promise about you last night, and they can't take it back. Stop. Before you scroll past, before another distraction pulls you away, give this moment just a little of your time. These words were not sent into the world randomly. They were meant to find you today, at this exact hour. Don't skip, because something important is waiting for you. And what you are about to hear happened far more recently than you might believe. Last night, while the world was quiet, and most hearts were resting, your soulmate did something they have never done before. They made a promise, not a casual promise, spoken lightly and forgotten by morning. This was the other kind, the kind a person makes only once or twice in an entire lifetime. The kind that is sealed so deeply within the heart that it becomes part of who they are. And here is the truth that changes everything. The promise was about you. They did not plan it. That is what makes last night so remarkable. There was no special occasion, no meaningful date circled on a calendar, no reason the world could see. But the heart keeps its own calendar, and last night, your soulmate's heart decided that the waiting had gone on long enough. Something inside them rose up quietly, and refused to be silenced for even one more day. It began in stillness, the kind of stillness that arrives late in the evening, when every excuse has gone to sleep, and only honesty remains awake. They found themselves thinking of you. Not briefly, the way a passing thought visits and leaves, but deeply, the way a heart returns to the one place it calls home. Memory after memory surfaced, each one warmer than the last, and somewhere between those memories, a single question appeared that they could no longer avoid. How much longer am I going to carry this without acting on it? Stay till the end, because what happened next was not loud or dramatic. It was quiet and absolute. In that late hour, alone with the truth, they spoke words that no one else heard. Words meant for you, about you, sealed in the silence of the night. And the moment those words were spoken, something within them permanently changed. They felt it immediately. A weight lifted, a direction locked into place, a door closed gently behind them, and they knew, with complete certainty, that they would never walk back through it. That is why they can't take it back. Not because someone is holding them to it, not because the words were witnessed or recorded, but because some promises change the person who makes them. Last night's promise did not just leave their lips, it rewrote their heart. And a heart, once rewritten, does not return to its old pages. Something important is waiting for you, because the exact words of that promise, the words spoken into the darkness, with your name held gently inside them, have a meaning that will only fully reveal itself as this story unfolds. They are being kept for the right moment, protected like something sacred. So remain here a little longer. In the next part, you will discover what happened, in the days leading up to last night, the quiet storm that had been building inside your soulmate, and the final moment that made the promise impossible to hold back. Part 2. No promise like this arrives out of nowhere. It is always the final drop that makes a full heart overflow. To understand last night, you have to see the quiet storm that had been gathering inside your soulmate for weeks. Don't skip, because this is the part of the story no one around them ever saw. On the surface, their life looked completely normal. They woke, they worked, they smiled where smiles were expected. But underneath that familiar surface, something restless had been growing. It started small, a memory of you, arriving at an unusual moment, a feeling of absence in the middle of a crowded room, a strange sense, difficult to explain, that their life was moving forward, while their heart remained standing in one place, waiting, they tried everything to quiet it. They filled their schedule, they chased distractions. They told themselves that time heals everything, and that this feeling would fade like all the others. But this feeling was not like the others. Instead of fading, it grew clearer. Instead of loosening its grip, it settled deeper, and slowly, they began to understand something that both frightened and freed them. This was never a feeling passing through their life. This was a truth living at the center of it. Stay till the end, because then came the week when everything intensified. Little reminders of you began appearing everywhere, so many and so precisely timed, that dismissing them as coincidence began to feel dishonest. A phrase someone spoke, that sounded exactly like something you would say. A song arriving at the perfect wrong moment. A quiet evening sky that pulled your memory forward without asking permission. Each sign on its own meant little. Together, they became impossible to ignore. Your soulmate is not someone who believes easily. That is what makes this part so meaningful. They questioned everything. They searched for logical explanations. But there is a moment in every honest heart, when resistance simply runs out of strength, when the evidence within becomes greater than the doubt. They reached that moment last week, and once they did, only one question remained. Not whether the feeling was real, but what they were finally going to do about it. Something important is waiting for you, because on the final evening before the promise, something small and unexpected happened. The last drop that made everything overflow. They came across something connected to you. An ordinary object, an ordinary moment, one the rest of the world would have walked past without noticing. But they stopped. They stood completely still, and in that moment all the weeks of quiet storm gathered into a single clear realization. I cannot keep living at a distance from what my heart has already chosen. They carried that realization home with them. And that night, alone in the stillness, it became the promise. Remain here a little longer, because in the next part, you will learn exactly how the promise was made, the surprising thing they did just before speaking it, and why they say those few minutes changed them more than entire years of their life. Part 3. Some moments deserve to be witnessed slowly. What happened last night is one of them, so let the world grow quiet around you for a minute, and step into the scene where everything changed. Don't skip, because you are about to see the moment the promise was born. It was late, the kind of late where the day's noise has fully dissolved, and the silence feels almost alive. Your soulmate could not sleep. They had stopped trying. The realization from that evening was still burning quietly inside them. And they knew, the way we sometimes simply know, that this night was different. So they did something they had not done in a very long time. They sat down alone, without a phone, without a distraction, without an escape, and they faced their own heart completely. And before any promise was spoken, they did something surprising. They allowed themselves to remember everything, not just the beautiful moments but all of it. The uncertainty, the distance, the nights of wondering, the times they almost reached out and stopped themselves. The seasons when they pretended to have moved on, while their heart quietly kept its vigil. They walked through every chapter without flinching, because they understood something profound. A promise made in denial is weak. A promise made in full honesty is unbreakable. They wanted this one to be unbreakable. Stay till the end, because when the remembering was finished, a remarkable calm settled over them. Every memory, even the difficult ones, had led to a single conclusion, and that conclusion had your name on it. They realized that through every twist of their journey, through every path that seemed to lead elsewhere, their heart had never once changed its true direction, and a heart that constant deserves to finally be obeyed. So in that deep stillness they spoke, quietly, steadily, with no witness but the night itself. The words were simple, great promises always are, but as each word left them, they felt it anchoring somewhere permanent, the way roots take hold of deep earth. By the time the final word was spoken, they knew something absolute had just occurred. There are sentences a person can walk away from. This was not one of them, and then came the part they did not expect: peace. Not excitement, not fear, but a vast quiet peace unlike anything they had felt in years. The exhausting inner war between what they felt and how they lived was finally over, because the two had at last been joined into one. They slept that night more deeply than they had in a long, long time. And when morning came, the promise was still there, not as a memory of the night before, but as a living part of who they now are. Something important is waiting for you, because they woke with an unexpected certainty about one more thing. A promise like this cannot remain invisible forever. It demands to become real in the world. Which means that sooner or later, in a moment of its own choosing, this promise is going to reach you. Remain here a little longer, because in the next part, you will see the first thing they did, the very next morning. The small action that proves this promise is already in motion, and the one obstacle that still stands quietly in its path. Part 4. Promise proves itself not in the night it is made, but in the morning after. Words spoken in darkness are only the beginning. What a person does in the daylight reveals whether the promise was real. Don't skip, because what your soulmate did the very next morning tells you everything about how serious last night truly was. They woke early, earlier than usual, with a clarity that felt almost unfamiliar, and before the day could crowd in with its demands, they did something small but deeply meaningful. They began to prepare. Quietly, without announcing anything to anyone, they took the first practical step toward the future they had promised themselves in the night. It was not a grand gesture. Great changes rarely begin with grand gestures. It was a simple, deliberate act of alignment, the kind of step a person only takes when they have truly decided, and that first step led to another. Throughout the day, the people around them noticed something they could not name. A steadiness. A quiet purpose in the way they moved through ordinary tasks. Someone even asked if something good had happened. Your soulmate only smiled and said, "Not yet, but it will," because that is the nature of an unbreakable promise. It turns the future into a certainty that the present has simply not caught up with. Stay till the end, because there is honesty owed to you here as well. One obstacle still stands in the path of this promise, and it is not what you might fear. It is not another person. It is not fading feelings. It is not doubt about you, for that doubt died long ago. The final obstacle is the oldest one of all, the fear of the moment itself, the knowledge that when the promise finally reaches you, everything hidden becomes visible, and there is no returning to the comfortable shadows of silence. But here is what makes this chapter different from every chapter before it. In the past, that fear would have won. It had won for years, quietly convincing them that waiting was wisdom, and silence was safety. Not anymore. The promise changed the balance of power inside them. Now, whenever the fear rises, they simply return to the words they spoke into the night, and the fear grows small again. They have accepted something that most people spend a lifetime avoiding. The pain of courage lasts a moment, the pain of regret lasts forever. They have chosen the moment. Something important is waiting for you, because as the day ended, they added something to the promise. A gentle amendment, made while watching the evening settle over the world. They promised that when the moment comes, they will hold nothing back, no half-truths to stay safe, no careful words that protect the heart by shrinking it. You will receive the whole truth, in its full depth, exactly as it lives inside them. Remain here a little longer, because in the next part, you will discover why this promise, of all promises, truly cannot be taken back, the beautiful reason behind those words in the title, and what began shifting in the unseen the moment the vow was made. Part 5. By now, one question may be quietly circling your mind. Many promises are made in emotional midnight moments and quietly abandoned by those who made them. Why is this one different? Why can't it be taken back? Don't skip, because the answer is the most beautiful part of this entire story. The answer is simple, and it is this. The promise was not an act of emotion. It was an act of recognition. Your soulmate did not decide to feel something new last night. They finally acknowledged something that has been true for a very long time. And here is the quiet law that governs such moments. A person can walk away from a decision. No one can walk away from a recognition. Once you have truly seen a truth, you cannot unsee it. Once the heart has admitted its home, it cannot pretend to be homeless again. That is why there is no taking it back. It would be like taking back a sunrise. The light has already touched everything. Stay till the end, because in the days since the promise, they have tested this themselves. In small moments of old habit, they tried to imagine returning to the way things were. The comfortable distance, the safe silence, the life arranged carefully around an unspoken truth, and they discovered something that made them smile. They could no longer even picture it. The person who lived that way no longer exists. The promise did not just point them toward a new future. It quietly ended an old identity. There is simply no one left inside them to take the words back, and something else has been happening, something subtle and remarkable. Since the night of the promise, the space between your two lives has begun to change. Not through force, and not through any dramatic event, but through a series of small, quiet shifts that no one is orchestrating and yet everything seems to obey. Situations rearranging, timing loosening, paths that once ran parallel beginning, ever so slightly, to curve toward one another. It is as though the world heard the promise too, and began gently clearing the road it will travel on. Something important is waiting for you, because your soulmate has noticed these shifts, and they have chosen to respond in the wisest possible way. Not by rushing, and not by forcing the moment before it ripens. A promise this important deserves a meeting this right. So they are moving the way deep rivers move, slowly, steadily, and with absolute inevitability. Every day they take one more quiet step. Every day, the distance grows one step smaller. They are not asking if the moment will come anymore. They are simply walking toward it. And late in the evenings, when the world grows still, they sometimes repeat the promise to themselves. Not because they fear forgetting it, but because saying it again feels like touching something sacred. Each repetition adds another layer of strength until the promise has become less like words and more like a place they now live. Remain here a little longer, because in the next part, this story turns toward you, what all of this quietly asks of your heart, and how to make sure that, when the promise finally arrives at your door, it finds you ready to receive it. Part 6. A promise travels between two hearts, and you are the destination of this one. so this part of the message belongs entirely to you. Don't skip, because how you carry the coming days matters more than you know. Nothing heavy is being asked of you. You do not need to search for your soulmate, decode every coincidence, or force open any doors. Promises like this one keep themselves, truths like this one find their way. What is asked of you is gentler, and in its own way more powerful. Be receivable, keep your heart soft. Life may have taught you to guard it, and perhaps those lessons once served you. But a heart wrapped entirely in armor cannot receive what is traveling toward it. You do not need to remove every wall in a day. Simply leave a gate unlocked. Stay open to the possibility that your story is not finished, that the quietest chapters are sometimes the ones just before everything changes. Stay till the end, because there is something else you can do, and it mirrors exactly what your soulmate has been doing since the night of the promise. Prepare gently in your own life. Tend to your peace. Care for your dreams, as though something wonderful is coming, because it is. Speak kindly to yourself in the quiet hours. The version of you that will stand in that future moment is being shaped by how you treat yourself right now. Let them arrive to find you flourishing, not because you waited desperately, but because you lived beautifully in the meantime. And when the small signs come to you, and they will, receive them with a smiling heart. A memory that returns with unusual warmth, a feeling of comfort arriving out of nowhere. A sudden unexplainable sense on some ordinary evening, that somewhere, someone is thinking of you. You now know what was happening on the other side of such moments in this story. Perhaps something similar is happening on the other side of yours. Two hearts bound by a promise often feel each other long before they see each other. Something important is waiting for you. Because there is one final thing your soulmate hopes, a hope they attach to the promise, like a ribbon around a gift. They hope that when the truth finally reaches you, it will not arrive as a shock, but as a recognition, that some quiet part of you will hear it and think, I think I always knew. That is why this message found you today. Not to spoil the moment, but to prepare the soil, so that when the promise blooms in your life, your heart will already know its name. Remain here just a little longer, because the final part carries what you have been waiting for, since the very first words, the heart of the promise itself, and the reason it will never, ever be taken back. Part 7. And now the story arrives where it was always meant to arrive. At the promise itself. You have seen the storm that built it, the night that birthed it, the morning that proved it, and the quiet shifts it has already set in motion. There is only one thing left: the words. Don't look away now, because this is the moment the title left unfinished. Last night, alone in the stillness, with your presence filling their heart completely, your soulmate spoke this vow into the dark. I will not leave this life without them knowing the whole truth of what they are to me. I will close the distance between us, however long it takes, whatever it asks of me. I will bring them my whole heart, hidden nothing, held back nothing. And from tonight forward every road I walk will be a road that leads toward them. That is the promise, that is what was sealed last night. And now you understand why it can never be taken back. Because it was not a promise to do something. It was a promise to be someone, and they have already become that person. The vow is not waiting in their future. It is living in their present. Guiding every choice, steadying every step, turning every ordinary day into one more quiet mile traveled in your direction. So, carry this with you as you return to your life. Somewhere beyond your sight, a heart has bound itself to you with words that cannot be unspoken. The silence you may have interpreted as forgetting, was never forgetting. It was a storm gathering into a vow, and the vow is now in motion. You do not need to do anything tonight except believe that you are worth such a promise. Because you are, you always were. Let that truth settle somewhere deep, and let it change the way you see your quiet days. They are not empty, they are the road being traveled. Stay hopeful, stay soft, stay becoming. The promise has been made, the heart behind it will not turn back, and every sunrise now brings it one day closer to your door. If these words found you today, they found you for a reason. A vow with your name on it is already crossing the distance. All that remains is the beautiful moment when it finally arrives.